Good morning, guys, evening or afternoon. I'm not sure when you guys are watching this video. This is going to be our daily cryptocurrency market update, and it was a very frustrating, very choppy market for the day traders yesterday on crypto. We're going to be doing a number of things in this video. We're going to be addressing the sort of MtGox FUD, maybe not FUD, just talking about this email, I believe, that was sent out on the 31st of August, talking about the start date for essentially looking to start distributing the MtGox stolen Bitcoin back to creditors. But we'll talk about this because it's not clear cut, and the date that they're going to be releasing and trying to give back the 140,000 Bitcoin, it doesn't seem to be September the 15th, but we'll talk about this. This was shared by Richard Hart. I'm sure many of you know who Richard Hart is, and we'll read a sort of rebuttal from Eric Wall saying that, you know, MtGox essentially isn't distributing the 140,000 coins on September. An announcement came out today, which basically just talks the start date of when you can no longer sell your claim. So talking about the language here, this is going to be interesting. And the MtGox story has been a story that we've been involved in for a while. I started the channel really early in 2020 before, and then of course got very aggressive after the March 2020 crash. But this is a video that I made talking about the MtGox situation, how it won't affect Bitcoin's price. And this was back on December 2020. Obviously, we were in a beautiful bull run. You can see December. So we were around about 18K, around about where Bitcoin is today, and this sort of news was really flared up. Bitcoin, of course, we know the story went on to eventually 69K, but from there really went to your sort of 64K region. So I kind of feel like people should pay attention to the MtGox news, because if that amount of Bitcoin was to be released and given back to people, then essentially, you know, that would cause some serious sell pressure, and it's something to look out for. Because, and I actually think if we got official dates, and I don't believe that the 15th of September is when they're officially actually releasing and giving back the tokens. If we got official dates, I think you'd have a sell-off into that, and then probably an even greater sell-off as the tokens were released, because I think the majority would sell the Bitcoin that they get back, certainly having gone through all this and held it for so long, or forcefully held it for so long, I guess. You know, I think Bitcoin was around about $500 when it initially took place. So that I think a lot of people would be looking to get rid of those. So we'll talk about this article, look at Eric Wall's rebuttal. We're going to talk about a number of other things going on. You know, we are moving into a crisis, I believe, in regards to an energy crisis during the winter. Everybody that I'm speaking to, I spend a lot of time speaking to everyday people, business owners. Business is something that's always interested me. Before I went full-time crypto, I actually owned a business, and I've owned a business since I was 20. It's something I've always been very interested in. One thing that I'm noticing from, you know, whether it be takeaways, whether it be gyms, whether it be swimming pool, whatever it may be, you know, there's this kind of crunch being felt. And I've been maintaining my sort of stance that I think that gets also felt through markets. You know, March 2020 saw lots of money go into markets. We're now at that stage where liquidity is really getting, we're in the adverse in regards to liquidity. We're going to talk about the dollar as well. Dollar made some beautiful moves yesterday. This rally will eventually fade. The issue for me is, and we had 108 as a target, well, when we were back below 100, is that there's fundamental reasons for the dollar to continue to go up. Dollar going up is bad for risk on. It's basically a good indication that, you know, the dollar is getting a bid because people want it. And if people are wanting dollars, well, what are they selling to get those dollars? Typically risk assets, more so than anything. You know, when you look at exposable assets like crypto, that's probably going to be one of the first things to go, and then they'll sort of work their way down. You know, maybe they've got a car that they don't want to sell, or you know, so on and so forth. So I still think we're in a very, very sort of not so good time period. There's so much risk on the table. The Chinese stock market, it's not really the Chinese stock market, the Chinese real estate market is in serious trouble, and I think this is going to be saw with Evergrande just the effect that had on everything. And the reason being was because we had the likes of even BlackRock that owned Evergrande shares. So it's contagion. And that this is just one risk of many. I also want to talk about the fact that there was a Coinbase bug which allowed people in Georgia to essentially take 100x more profits than what they were owed. This has led to a lot of these people that maybe not exploited, or maybe they willingly exploited it, or didn't, getting their bank accounts froze, which is interesting. It's always it's not funny when this happens with exchanges because it can have repercussions for the broader users of that exchange. But it's certainly an interesting story that we'll talk about. So let's just start things off. Let's look at the overall market cap. We are under $1 trillion. Bitcoin is really just going sideways. We've given you a bullish and a bearish outcome. If you wanted to be bullish, you could maybe look for some sort of double bottom here, but we've got to see that strength coming back sort of up to 24K, 25K. I don't think that's the most probable scenario. You guys know that really since 44K, we've been on this downward trajectory and really sort of predicting that prices are going to go low. At the end of the day, I can take my best educated guess on the price, but there's no certainty in this game, and that's something to understand. But we've been pretty cock on so far. Ultimately, I do see further downside on the horizon, and we've spoken about the sort of structures that we're in, and we'll drop down the time frames and look at them. Very weird yesterday because the dollar was rallying, the stock market was getting smashed initially at the open, and then it sort of clawed a lot of that back. And just the fact that the dollar was doing what it was doing, I'd have expected Bitcoin to get a lot more smashed than it did. That had me sort of nervy yesterday, certainly in regards to shorting, because essentially when you have all these, when something should be selling off and it's not, well, there's usually a reason for that. There's usually some sort of strength. You got to look at the strength there that's kind of holding it and take that seriously. But I think really with these kind of bidders, and we've got some big bidders for Bitcoin and Ethereum on Binance that are sort of holding things up, and you can really see that in the wicks. Also, if you look at the order books, that strength will eventually fail. I kind of feel like resistance is futile in regards to trying to keep the price above 20K. I think it's magnetized to come lower. We'll look at 15K, and then we'll look to where we're potentially going. There's been no reason for us to flip bullish here whatsoever. The RSI is something that we're paying close attention to, because I think this may give a decent bottoming signal. Certainly if the RSI bottoms lower on the next down leg than it previously has done, then that might be one indication of many that we're looking at to reallocate into these markets. This has always been the goal, guys. We want to basically make sure we preserve our capital, only to redeploy it into this beautiful, vibrant technological revolution that is going to change many of our lives. Let's take a look at this. So this was from Richard Hart. You ready for the MtGox Bitcoin dump? Richard Hart is very much against Bitcoin, or certainly its price. He has an alternative cryptocurrency. And this is talking about essentially an email that was sent out talking about, essentially rehabilitating the Bitcoin that was given out. And it says here, there's a start date of the 15th of September, but there was actually a rebuttal to this from Eric Wall. MtGox is not distributing 140,000 coins on September the 15th. An announcement came out August the 31st, which basically just talks the start date of when you can no longer sell your claim. I understand the language is complicated, but please read before spreading misinformation. I've highlighted the part to you, a period which the transfer claims are prohibited. It doesn't say on September the 15th we'll send out 140,000 coins. The thing is, there are that many people that need to receive this that we would get certainly a definitive answer on when that, they have to say, look, we're going to start redistributing, or you're going to receive your Bitcoin on this date. We haven't had that yet. So looking the way this works is that MtGox is going to need banking details and exchange info from thousands and thousands of people. They'll need to collect this from US creditors. That will take time. How long, you ask? Weeks, months, who knows? Exactly, we don't really know. Before MtGox has this information, they cannot send 100. So they need to know where the Bitcoin's going. So I thought this was a great rebuttal from Eric Wall. Not familiar with Eric Wall, but he's got a decent following on Twitter. Obviously somebody that was involved in the MtGox, or has been here long enough to have had coins in MtGox. MtGox was one of the only exchanges back in the day. Jed McCaleb, who's obviously gone on to found Stellar, was the guy, really the head honcho there. Essentially, the issue was they kept all the Bitcoin on one computer with very minimal security. So it was a sitting duck. But one reason we have the kind of security and measures that we have today is because of MtGox. Silver lining in everything, even if it is a very damaging situation. So this is going to be interesting. We're going to dismiss it for now. We don't think the 15th of September is going to be when MtGox release their tokens. To to the accreditors. You know, this is something that I've been covering for a while. This was back, like I say, on the 8th of December. Bitcoin at price bearish alert as 140,000 Bitcoin from MtGox may move for the first time. So this, by the way, was back. Where was the price of? Do we look at the price of Bitcoin in this video? We got a picture of coin market. Yeah, Bitcoin's around about 18k. Ethereum was 500, and so on and so forth. We had Chainlink actually at 6th position. I remember the days. This is, you know, we did very well in the last bull market, and we will be doing well into the next one. So this has been an ongoing story. Let's move on to the next article before we do a bit of technicals on Bitcoin. Britain's banks are giving staff one-off crisis payments, but they're being urged to do much more. So I'm trying to figure out, when money gets printed, it finds its way to markets. We're now at the opposite end of that. We've shown you the M1 money supply, which really dictates that, certainly for the US, and you can use that as a model for across the world. So you see huge amounts of money come in, peters off, you get your marginally high highs, obviously you get this parabola, and then now it's coming down the other side. Very, very correlated. Is the energy crisis going to be what forces them? And they're going to have to, again, speaking to everyday people, put some sort of stimulus into the economy to help people pay their energy bills. Does that find its way to markets? Well, it depends how they do it. So do they do a sort of furlough thing where they just give people money, or are they going to just sort of credit their energy bills? And depending on how that happens, whether one's specifically targeted or whether they just blanket give everybody money, and then essentially that means people have got that money and they'll put it into markets. You know, these are things that we need to look at, paying attention to the macro. Chinese stocks could have plunged by 20% if real estate troubles get much worse. This is from Morgan Stanley. They will get much worse. When you look at the Chinese property market, it's an absolute nightmare. And the thing is, with a lot of data and a lot of even like stock earnings and stuff like that we get from China, you've got to always go, let's make sure that we know that this is credible, and that everything's, you know, the I's have been dotted and the T's have been crossed before we get into it. So I think there's a lot of serious issues going on with the Chinese property market. I think that has contagion. I think, you know, for me, when I look at the risk to reward of being an investor right now, the reward, or the risk, I should say, far outweighs the reward. That simple. That will change eventually. But we need to see reason to be bullish, and we're not bullish here whatsoever. We've given you the bullish case. Okay, maybe this plays out as a W double bottom. Then you get back up to your sort of 31k. You need to form that reverse head and shoulders or some sort of similar structure, and then we can go. But the macro just simply doesn't support that. The macro for me really supports more downside. The technicals support more downside. What reason? Your indicators support more downside. What reason have we got to flip bullish here? And we're going to dive into a little bit of structure. Yesterday was just annoying from a day trading point of view. This is what you got. You're just giving it up. It's just a range bound environment. I don't know how many of you guys trade order blocks, but maybe we can do a lot more things on trading at some point. We've certainly got a series that we'd like to release for you guys. Coinbase users across Georgia milk price bug for 100x profits. In Georgia, traders who profited from an hour-long price bug have found their bank accounts locked and exchange want its money back. Of course they do. But can you say that this is the exchange's fault, or is it the people who, you know, some people may have got caught in the crossfire here? Just some interesting news for you. Let's look at some technicals. So, and Ethereum's even more frustrating. You know, this is positive structure, actually. To be honest, you've got this broadening. You've come to the top of it. You're showing your strength there. You've now broken through. You know, and we did say this. We did say, look, there is a good chance, given, you know, you got to respect this 20k range here. This is the prior high of 2017. Good chance Bitcoin does this and maybe retest this and then sort of fades, and then we get that dip. For this to be a bullish, for us to flip bullish, we need this double bottom and we need that super strength. You know, we need to see the strength there. This is not strength. Given just how much of a significant support this is not strength. You know, you're actually even failing to put in a higher high here. It's not strength at all. Maybe, you know, we can see some sort of a structure, but as of yet, this is not strength. So we had the broadening structure that we gave you. We had the rising wedge, which we actually weren't 100% on, but it clearly has been validated. You've broken off for the lower grind line of this broadening structure. Do you get the retest up here potentially, or does it just sort of fizzle out and die? I think the second is probably more probable, but it depends on a number of things. September is called Rectember for a reason. So historically, it's the sort of worst month for the stock market. For us, we're just not buyers here. You know, maybe you get, and we'll actually get rid of this bloody chart. We don't want we don't want that. We're not buyers here. We're not seeing what we need. This is a gamble. Yeah, you need to see, you know, something like this, and then we can reassert, just like you had over here, or just like you had over here, or just like you had back here. You're on the downside of this EMA. 30 EMA is what I use typically, looking at a weekly chart. From an investment point of view, maybe not a trading point of view. I don't think you can trade very accurately off EMAs. You can and you can't. But I think there's better methods out there of trading. This needs to flatten out, and you need to come back and you need to get on the right side of it. Balance of probability will tell you that you're on the wrong side of this as a buyer. And when you're above it, you're on the right side of it as a buyer. Vice versa, you're on the right side of this as a seller when you look at probabilities and the direction that it's going to go. So that's really all I got for you in this video. You know, it's very much Groundhog Day on this channel. We're telling you what we're seeing. And ultimately, as of now, this is still more downside exceptionally likely. The dollar yesterday absolutely ripped. And I'm surprised this didn't cause more of a sell-off in the crypto space. You can see this sort of move that we had here, you know, and people are going, oh, well, it's going to have to blow off soon. I mean, actually, do you know something? I'm going to say this right now. I actually haven't even updated people on this. Look at this. Bear with me a second, guys. Where did this wick happen? Okay, we've already got a line there. We can probably bring it down, but let me delete all the stuff on this chart. Dollar's going for it today, maybe. Or over the weekend, or certainly into next week. It's Rectember, guys. Let's extend this. Oh, man. Forgive me, guys. Okay, so it didn't actually bounce off this. But it is finding support here. Caught a nice bid here. So have you just completely support and resistance flipped? Maybe. Do you get that continuation? This is going to kill risk on assets. And this is why I was surprised yesterday Bitcoin didn't absolutely roll. It's an annoying day of shorting, I can tell you that much. But it always is, right? So that's really all I've got for you in this video, guys. If you enjoyed the content, like, always appreciate it as a comment. And I look forward to seeing each and every one of you in the next YouTube video. Have a wonderful Friday, guys. See you in the next one.